Now, of course, I'm going to have to get into the anime gaming scene when it comes to this, and this is going to be Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm. Now, although Ultimate Ninja Storm 1 came out in 2009, I believe, I'm talking about the 2 going on, because honestly, when 2 came out going on, I feel this had a huge influence on the current anime games that we're getting right now. Unfortunately, they're kind of, some of them, a lot of them are subpar, I will say. A lot of them are, if we're being real. You know, even with the whole Xenoverse thing and whole Jump Force, you know, just the whole format on that. This really changed the style of anime fighting games, I feel anime fighting games back then took a lot more skill to play, but now it's just like mash the B button or whatever, and you know, press triangle or whatever here and there, and you'll get a super. It's really changed the whole format of the whole anime fighting game scene. I really hope it changes soon, once again, because I really want to play games like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, All Stars, like just remade, revamped in some type of way, because I just like when you have anime fighting games like where it takes a lot of skill to actually play. Like I remember even games like anime games that didn't really seem as big back then, like Zatch Bell. Zatch Bell at least had like some great combos and stuff in it, versus now, if Zatch Bell had another game, nobody would probably play it, because I don't think anybody's talking about Zatch Bell right now. But it will literally just probably be you just mashing the B button. I mean, look at My Hero game. The second one literally looks like the first one, first off, and then not only that, it just has the same format as Naruto Storm games. Not to say that this isn't bad, because the Naruto Storm games, you know, at first, especially when 3 came out, that jump was fire. But after a while, it gets boring. What kept Storm alive, I believe, honestly, was the fact that it was coming out consistently, and it went side by side with the series. But since the series is somewhat over, because of Boruto is still ongoing, I don't really see them making a new Boruto game really. But when Naruto Shippuden ended, I mean, it was kind of like, oh, okay, so I mean, it would only make sense for them to end the Storm series. But with this being said, the momentum of that just kept up all of these anime games with that same format that I'm really tired of, honestly. I'm sure a lot of people within the comments section are going to be confirming the same thing. Now, the next one, guys. The next one is going to be actually the Batman Arkham games. And I know this isn't a surprise to a lot of people, but even though Arkham Asylum came out in 2009, there were still a whole bunch of other ones that came out within the 2010s as well. And I'm sure people still played Arkham Asylum within 2010, etc. until the future ones came out, especially Arkham City. But what really makes this game really influential, because it really kind of changed the perception of superhero games in a lot of ways, and just the whole presentation of it in itself. Batman Arkham Asylum not only changed this, but it changed the whole combat of a whole lot of other games. A lot of other games adopted this format, although it was really similar to Assassin's Creed. I feel like it had an influence on Assassin's Creed as well, and not only this, Shadow of Mordor, believe it or not. When Shadow of Mordor first came out, a lot of people compared this to the Batman Arkham, series type of combat, because it's literally like the same pretty much. Although there weren't swords and stuff per se, but it has a lot of influence on just the whole combat system of a lot of games, especially other superhero games that later came out. Not to say that they were all good. Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man's fire, but that combat system was influenced from Batman. And although I didn't really play the Batman Arkham games like that, I do have one. I have played Batman Arkham Origins, and I played the latest one that came out, the Arkham Knight. I played Arkham Knight. And, although I came back to it to play and everything, it's not as enjoyable as Spider-Man. But if it wasn't for these games, you just have to kind of respect it, because if it wasn't for Batman Arkham, there wouldn't be that new Spider-Man game. If I'm being real, that game probably wouldn't be as good as it is now if it wasn't for that Arkham format. Because, I mean, honestly, what really makes me not like this, what really makes me dislike, I guess, the Batman Arkham games in itself is probably just because of the tediousness of it. Like, in terms of like all the detective work you have to do, like it's cool and everything, like you're Batman, I understand he's a detective, but sometimes you just want to just fight people like within the game, like especially a superhero game, like you're not really trying to do all that and think too much. But you know, this once again is just highly influential in itself. Now guys, speaking of one of the most influential games, talking about one of the most influential games of the 2010s, I feel a lot of people don't even remember this game, to be honest. And that's going to be Arma 3, guys. Now, for those that don't know, Arma 3 was literally kind of like almost like a military simulator in a lot of ways. It was more realistic than Battlefield, let's just say. It was only for the PC, but Arma 3 was pretty much what stemmed the whole Battle Royale format, which is really blown up within the last 3 to 4 years. It's 2019 as I'm making this video, obviously. But what really makes this game so influential was the fact that it had DayZ. Now, for the people that don't remember, DayZ was literally I think it was in alpha or beta during the time. And what really makes this game, makes these whole things really influential in itself, besides just it stemming the whole Battle Royale thing, it really just showed how much gaming creators can go. They can charge you games that weren't even in beta yet, and it would blow up and get a whole bunch of money, thus leading into DayZ never actually finishing. They never finished the game. It was still in alpha to the day it died. But they made so much money off of it that a lot of other developers started to do the same, and they started becoming successful. But backtracking into its roots and everything, rooting the whole Battle Royale scheme, DayZ ended up being like a zombie Battle Royale type simulator. It was almost, it led into H1Z1 essentially. This turned into H1Z1. This is why I didn't finish, because it turned into H1Z1. Or I think it turned into another game before H1Z1. And then H1Z1 came out, and then H1Z1 had the whole Battle Royale thing. If it wasn't for H1Z1, then PUBG 1 exists. For people that don't know, PUBG was a very, very popular game within PC, and it did have its console versions, but it wasn't as good as the PC one, and it does have a phone version now. I think it's still doing good. But PUBG had the whole format of H1Z1. And this was very, very important, because you know what wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for the huge amount of success PUBG has? Fortnite.
You'll need to unlock your device first.
Okay. Fortnite is arguably one of the most popular games and one of the most grossing games, you know, multiplayer games anyways, besides GTA of 2019 or the 2010s in general. And this is because of the wide range of influence that it has. It's not only one of the most grossing Battle Royale games ever, multiplayer games ever, within the last, 3 years. This game's peak, once again, just like what I talked about when it came to Arma, it wasn't even finished yet. The game started off, first off, it wasn't even a Battle Royale game at first. It was like a tower defense type game. But once the Battle Royale came out, this really impacted the gaming community as a whole. Because if it wasn't for Fortnite's big success, the Epic Game Store wouldn't have launched, I don't think, as big as it did. Especially with the exclusive games and everything, that's a whole big thing in itself. But this is a huge competitor with Steam. And for the people that don't play PC, Steam is literally one of the most popular launchers or purchasing stores or community things or whatever for PC gamers as a whole. So if it wasn't for Fortnite's big success, the Epic Game Store wouldn't be as big as it is now, because the only other good game The only other big game the Epic Games Store had at the time was Paragon. Paragon. It was a MOBA. It was a MOBA that was kind of revolutionary in itself. I didn't play it personally. A lot of people did, but once Fortnite blew up, they dropped that. They just put all their focus on Fortnite pretty much in Unreal Engine. The Unreal Engine is another reason why Epic Games is so big right now, as well as Gears of War and all this other stuff. But Fortnite, focusing on Fortnite. Fortnite not only has this big influence on the gaming community because it really showed, like, people that don't even play video games, I'm sure know what Fortnite is, just because of kids in itself. This created the whole Fortnite meme dancing culture in itself, which is very, very influential. I'm not sure if there were any other games previous to this besides Minecraft that had that kind of big of an impact on the whole gaming community and outside of the gaming community in itself. But for this to not be a game in its peak that was done, it was still in beta, to make the amount of money as it did really showed a lot to developers. And not only this, for it to be a free-to-play game and make as much money as it did as an unfinished game in itself really showed a lot, considering that the primary amount of revenue that this game was generating was from skins, and that's pretty much it. It was skins. It was all skins pretty much. And the whole amount of people that were gaining, revenue that weren't, working on the game in itself were Twitch streamers. This increased the amount of Twitch streamers as well and changed the stigma of gaming, professional gamers in itself as well, where we see people like Ninja. Sorry, my camera cut off, it overheated. But for this to get him a deal with Adidas, this is really, really different than a lot of other pro gamers. I don't think Adidas has really stepped into, the whole gaming atmosphere, because they see how big esports is now and everything. And with Ninja being such a huge figure, him doing Super Bowl events, him doing a whole bunch of other things, outside of the gaming community itself, really just shows a lot. It shows a lot how big gaming has gotten within the 2010s and how much of an influence Fortnite has as well. And just a minor correction. If it wasn't for Minecraft's Hunger Games, I don't think the whole Battle Royale thing would have existed, because I think this is where it kind of started. Because I remember back in the day when I used to play, the only Battle Royale type thing that we were playing back then, especially that was online, was Fortnite's Hunger Games. If anybody remembers that, comment down below and leave a like. But yeah, that's something I just wanted to add real quick. But this video has gotten very, very long. I'm not sure if I'm going to split up into parts or anything. So, we only have a few more left. But the next one, guys, is going to be CSGO, Counter-Strike GO. Now, believe it or not, CSGO or Counter-Strike in itself has always been very popular for years. It's just CSGO was very influential in terms of the whole Lotto deals, the whole Lotto scandal with the whole YouTube thing. So I thought that was something to add, and something that was very controversial within the 2010s and something I thought should be talked about. The next one is going to be Overwatch, obviously, because the whole genre kind of, it kind of blew up from Overwatch. And not only this also added on to the more cosplayers, whatever. It kind of added more onto that kind of scheme, to more people cosplaying and everything. And, people cosplaying as Diva or, anybody, honestly. And this kind of led to some interesting videos that I don't watch, of course. But I guess that was something to add as well. It's getting kind of hot here, I'm not even gonna lie. The last big thing, I would say, that was extremely influential within the 2010s was something that really sparked the point-and-click genre community within gaming, and that was going to be Telltale's The Walking Dead. This came out in 2011, I believe. I remember when this first came out. I only liked it in the very beginning in itself because of the fact that it was doing the Walking Dead, genre. The Walking Dead, I feel, was at its all-time high, kind of. Right now, it's kind of not as good. I don't watch it anymore. I stopped watching it maybe 3 seasons ago. But with this in mind, this led into so many other things. This was already popular before. For those that don't remember, especially within the early 2000s, those SpongeBob point and click games were hitting a lot different than the console ones. I'm just saying, it hit different than Battle for Bikini Bottom on GameCube. But I'm just saying, the point and click games for SpongeBob back then. I mean, write down the comments down below if you guys were playing those games. But right now, because of The Walking Dead, unfortunately, Telltale is done. I think it might be still going potentially, but I'm not sure if it's going to be as good as it was before because it lost a lot of people. But this led to Wolf Among Us, the Batman game. This led to Life is Strange, Detroit Become Human. And these were things at the time. These are things that stem from just the whole huge success of Telltale's The Walking Dead. And this is really, really something, I guess, really powerful for developers right now, because they see you don't really need to have like a whole bunch of crazy stuff within the game that can't just tell a story, because this is what these are pretty much. They're essentially stories that you're able to tell where people are able to choose the over-ending result and etc. And they're able to, it's playable stories pretty much, playable movies kind of. That's how I kind of view them, especially with games like Detroit Become Human. You see even things like Netflix even adding some of these things. Like I know they have like a Minecraft story mode thing, and they did Black Mirror as well, and that's really, really crazy to even think that they kind of did that. So it kind of makes me wonder if they're ever going to do this into movies like they showed in Futurama. That one episode, I don't remember which one it was, but this is something that's very, very influential. And getting to the last thing I would say is very, very powerful, especially within the 2010s. Something that is highly influential was the whole 2K thing. Just 2K in itself. Let's just say 2K. Because Borderlands and NBA 2K, they're both under 2K. Sorry, camera overheated again. But, we're closing up anyway, so the last two things were obviously going to be Borderlands and Overwatch. And Borderlands, it was really influential within the 2010s, specifically Borderlands 2 mostly because I only played Borderlands 2 and up. I didn't play the first one yet. But Borderlands 2 was very, very influential because it not only showed once again the graphics don't really need to be realistic, especially within a generation where a lot of people were pushing towards that in order to become successful. And not only this increased the frequency of looter shooters and its success in the genre itself, considering things like Destiny and etc. So this was very, very influential. And another thing that was really influential, I would say, some people would say it's positive, some people would say it's negative, is going to be the NBA 2K. NBA 2K. Although NBA 2K was out way before the 2010s, this era specifically was very influential because this showed how much the gaming community not speaking up as much can negatively affect future games or series. And this is because within the NBA 2K community, for those that don't know, especially the sports gaming community right now, besides Madden, I believe, there's a weird thing going on where there's a whole bunch of paid, it's weird. So for NBA 2K, for example, what you do is, what they started to do around 14 to 16, I believe, was add VC, which is virtual currency. Now, some people were saying from the very start not to support this because this was going to negatively affect the online gaming aspect of this game, years down the road, and a lot of people didn't listen. They still did it, still bought it, because unfortunately what they kind of did, what NBA 2K did, they were really strategic with this. They made sure to make it very hard and very grindy for you to get certain items online. And this was due with the introduction of the park. So you have like a custom character and everything. It's pretty much Street NBA, which is something a lot of people have been wanting for a very long time, with the huge success of Volume 1 and Volume 2. Volume 3 didn't really do as good, but you know, with that whole genre itself dying out, a lot of people were craving this. And with it being online as well, you can play with your friends and everything, and you get to flex on people by buying, you know, items within the game. This was highly influential, guys. And especially with YouTube as well, because YouTube has also seen a big increase in the whole NBA gaming community as well. But with this all being said, guys, these were all of the most influential games within the 2010s, in my opinion. If you guys have any other games that you guys would like to add on the list, be sure to add it to the comment section down below. This was a very long video, I know, once again. But if you guys would like to see more videos like this and any other inspiring, positive videos or anything like that, like from my other videos, be sure to leave a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. I will see you guys all later in the next video, where I talk about the best anime videos, or anime within the 2010s as well. I will see you guys all later. Really do appreciate all the love and support and the rapid growth going on this channel. And I'll see you all later. You guys are all infinitely loved and appreciated. Peace.